Welcome to the Kyson Kid podcast, where we talk about everything that matters. We're talking about truth and love and self-love and compassion, relationships, how to grow, how to change, and how to enjoy the journey. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. I'm so excited to share this with you. This is a conversation and a podcast episode that I recorded 2 years ago, December of 2020. And at the time, I actually knew I wanted this to be one of the first couple episodes in my podcast. This conversation is on one of the most important topics in the universe, the topic of love. What's the truth about love? How does it work? How can you love yourself more? How can you love others? We're going to tackle some really cool questions. And at the time of this conversation, it was so present for me. I worried a little bit that, after 2 years, it wouldn't feel relevant or I wouldn't feel as connected to the podcast like this episode. But I listened to it a few times recently and it's awesome. So I hope you love it. This is a conversation with Michelle Truax. She's my mother-in-law. She is also a connection guide at Connected Life Institute. There's more information in the show notes, but I hope you love this conversation. Welcome to this episode. It's going to be way fun. I'm talking with Michelle, who's one of my good friends and just so happens to be my wife's mom, which is exciting. Because there's all kinds of possible stereotypes about mother-in-laws, which none of them are true. So that's fun. Do you know about those? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Crap.
But I don't fit into the stereotype?
No, I think it's been way fun. Yeah, I think one thing that I've really appreciated about Michelle is the constant deep conversations. It's okay to be making food in the kitchen and have a conversation, or driving in the car and to have a deep conversation. So that's one of my favorite things.
Mine too.
And it's been so fun. And I feel like that has actually inspired, that's the reason we're doing this podcast, is because we've been having a really cool conversation. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little introduction so that we know who you are.
Okay. I am awesome. I'm just kidding.
No, you don't have to be just kidding. That's true.
No, I try and be awesome. I am married to James, my husband. We've been married for 29 years, I think. Let me do the math. That sounds good enough. Cool. We have 7 kids. I have, in the last, 8 years. So 8 years ago, we adopted 3 kids from Ukraine. It was a sibling group. And that led us down this crazy path and adventurous path to having to really, really delve into what was going on in our lives, in our world, not only as a family and not only with parenting these 3 kids, but even in my marriage, in that relationship with my husband, and also most importantly in my relationship with myself and God. And I have learned through a lot of really hard experiences how important and vital relationships and connections are in our lives. And it has led me down a path to really feel passionate about learning more about myself. What makes me tick? Why am I the way I am? And how can I align myself with truth? How can I more fully embrace all of the traits within myself that are divine?
Yeah.
I've been on this quest to understand what is my true nature, and how can I fully understand that, and then how can I apply that to what is the true nature of God or my higher power, and then from there, what is the true nature of my husband? Who is he really? And just kind of wipe the slate clean of all of the outside, the surface level stuff. And let's get to the heart of what relationships and connections really are, and why we're all worthy and valuable of love, and why relationships actually can pull that out of all of us, so that we can find a way to really connect with each other and strengthen and support each other. So That's been my quest the last number of years. It's leading me even further down other paths. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Oh, awesome. Honestly, can you think of a cooler quest? In my opinion, there's nothing you could do in a life or in the world that could be more important than what you're talking about. Figuring out your own true nature, the nature of God, the nature of those that you love. There are other things that tie in, ways to do that. What's your mode, or what's your specific mission in that? But that is like the ultimate, that is the mission. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. My mantra is connection is perfection. So that's what I have really felt, that perfection isn't about anything that I do. It's about the relationships that I formulate, the true relationships, not these surface level relationships that I thought were real before, but now I'm discovering I hadn't really tapped into the beauty of what relationships really were before, because I didn't understand connection, and now I'm trying to learn that, and I'm trying to embrace it more in my life with those that I love.
Well, that's sweet. That's going to tie right into what we're talking about. I mean, that's why we've been having these conversations.
Yeah.
So super excited to have you on the show. Today we're talking about love. We're both recognizing in ourselves, I guess, a desire to have more love, and possibly some weakness, where we're both like, sometimes we struggle to feel the love that we want to feel.
For sure. Which is really humbling, right?
It is. It's humbling. It's a little scary, since love is the only thing it's like we talk about it all the time. So we're trying to figure it out. And part of me wants to say that everyone struggles with love, but I don't actually, like, I hope. No, see, that's bad. Like, I know.
We just don't want to be alone in it.
Yeah, we don't want to
be
alone. And hopefully there's something to be learned together as like the human family, and also as like our little families.
Yeah.
Just as like an introduction, a couple years back, I don't even know what inspired it, but I was just in like a dark, kind of a tough place, feeling like, what is going on? And just started asking questions about love. And it like almost made me sick how much I had no idea. Like, can anyone just tell me what love is? You know, I had no clue. So I talked to a lot of friends about it and started having, discussions and like taking time to meditate on it. And I wish I remembered all the details, but the first like breakthrough moment for me was this question of like, I think love might be wanting what's best for somebody.
I like that a lot.
And I think that's like one of the true pieces. I also love putting the word eternally on it. Like, not just what's best for someone like during this hour, because you don't want to upset them or hurt their feelings, but like what's best for them in the long run, even if it's difficult. And then what's best for me, what's best for God, what's best for them.
But that may not actually feel like love in the moment.
Right.
And so that perspective is really valuable, I think, to have the ability to project out into the future and try and think about it that way, that it's not just about the here and now. I like that a lot, adding that word eternally to it. That's awesome. And
there's kind of this question related to that, like what, and I'm not saying you need to answer this, but this is like a question I have. What needs to precede love? Like, for me to have the ability to love, what comes before it, I don't know.
Because in my personal experience, love has been so attached to actions or things that I do, behaviors, or whatever that may be, and that's not really where love comes from. So I'm here visiting you, right? Because you just had a baby.
We had a baby.
Yay, woohoo. And it's my first grandbaby. And as I've been holding this little baby and just thinking about how much I love her, that love is not attached to anything that she's said, anything that she's done, because at this point of her existence, she's incapable of doing much besides sleeping, eating, pooping, and just lying there looking around, right? It's not, that love isn't attached to anything. So she didn't have to do anything to earn my love. But then I was thinking this morning as I was holding her that somewhere along the line, there's this switch in our thought process where we start, at least I do, I guess I shouldn't pin this on anyone else, right?
Yeah, go for it.
But where I have noticed that I start having expectations for people, and it almost feels like they have to earn my love, or even for myself. So last night I was journaling and meditating and writing stuff down, and I wrote down this mantra of let me see if I can even remember it. Something to the, I need to memorize this mantra because it made me so uncomfortable as I wrote it, that nothing that I do, like no achievements, no actions, nothing is attached to my worth. And that made me so uncomfortable because I can't even imagine that being real. But I know that there's truth in it because of how I feel about my grandbaby, right?
Dang.
And yet I have a really hard time viewing myself as being worthy of love or a worthwhile individual unless I'm doing and being a certain way. That's what for some reason, I've started believing that that's what creates value for me. And it's just false.
Yeah.
And then I've noticed that I've attached that expectation to other people in my life, which is so unfair because then it makes them feel like they're not worthy of love unless they behave a certain way or they change for me or whatever the case may be. And that makes me sick too, because I don't want people to feel that way about me and about my love. But I've just been recognizing more and more lately that I've unintentionally given that message to people in my life.
Yeah, it's so weird how we start to like play that game with each other, where even if you like secretly are like, I don't believe it's about what you do, but we can start to interact that way.
For sure.
Like, oh, thanks for, anyway, such an interesting thing. I wanted to ask, how on earth why do you love our daughter? Why do you love your grandbaby? You know what I mean? Like, is it just happening, or like, how
did it happen?
Yeah. Where did it come from?
Yeah, that's such a good question because I don't know. And it was so natural, right? I mean, even before I met her, I felt that love for her, like just overflowing. And then that love is continuing to grow and grow and grow. Like, I feel like I love her today more than I did 2 weeks ago when I met her for the first time. But it's, I don't know where it comes from. Is it something that is given to us as a gift? Or is it something that we develop because we stay in a certain mind space that allows love to grow? Or we just kind of, I don't know. We actually think about what our heart's doing, or how, I don't know if we just recognize it and then that allows it to flourish and grow and expand. And I don't know. Do you have insight on that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still discovering this right as we're talking, but I'm remembering, there's a book by Sterling Ellsworth, I believe, Dr. Ellsworth. I really need to know the book, but I've read it, part of it, half of it. Mm-hmm. What he says is that it's the nature of a true self to always love another true self.
Oh, I love that.
Like that.
That's so cool.
I even wonder if a cool way to say it is like, it's impossible to hate another true self if you're in your true self.
Yeah. So
he describes it like sort of like two concentric circles, right? So at the center is your true self. And then through like trauma and, poor treatment, negative treatment as a child, we can cover up the true self in fear and other trauma and hurt.
Yeah.
And then what happens outside of that trauma, we create a false self or a negative self. There's a few ways to refer to that. But the negative self is where like shame and games happen.
For sure.
And maybe that love game of like, you need to earn my love and I'll earn your love. That's where that starts to happen. So I wonder if, just this morning I started having this like theory pop up. Like, I wonder if we already have the ability to love, and not saying that it's not a gift. Like, I do believe that true like charity and love is a gift from above, or gift from our higher power. But I wonder if what's happening is it's getting covered up. Like, I was thinking that I love the example of children because it happens the other way as well. I think it's the natural state of children to love.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's like this amazing, I don't know if you've seen the video of this little girl at a park, and she's just running around, and like her mom's there with her, but she walks up to everyone and is like, can I give you a hug? And like just giving strangers hugs and like showing them that she loves them.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful.
And that's sort of my theory right now, is that if I'm struggling with love, it means I've covered up my ability to love.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and as you were sharing that, I was thinking, the times that I struggle to feel love and express love and share love, whatever that looks like, are the times that I'm feeling self-hatred, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure, for me. It's when someone else is mirroring my shame or my self-hatred, and then I mirror that back to them. And it becomes that love game that is so detrimental and devastating to relationships.
Yeah.
And I get sucked into that all the time instead of staying in that truth of who I really am and who I really want to be, and not buying into the lies of who I'm not, because I'm not a hateful person, but sometimes I buy into that lie of that I'm not worthy of love, or I'm not enough, or I'm flawed to such an extent that people cannot how would they possibly love someone as flawed as I am? And then I project that onto other people as well, because that feels true to me, even though it's completely false. And that's when it starts that really, really dysfunctional cycle in our relationships, just back and forth.
Well, first I was going to say, it's so cool that you're just saying like, sometimes I deal with self-hatred. That's like a terrifying thing to say, I think. I'm super curious to hear how did you get to a place where you could see the self-hatred and feel okay admitting it to yourself? It's kind of a little detour question.
Oh, well, I'm not always okay admitting it to myself.
Okay. Cool, me neither.
Because sometimes it gets to be so, like, such a huge weight and burden that I get into really depressed states, and I get, like, I drown in it, right? And then it feels like I can't get out. In fact, I was thinking of an experience that I had just last year where I was drowning in that self-hatred and that just feeling like I wasn't worthy and that I wasn't enough and that I wasn't making any contribution in life. Just all those negative thoughts and feelings that sometimes we get caught up in. And it was a really, really bad cycle. But what I was thinking about is that in those states, when I found myself in that the thing, interestingly enough, that pulls me out of that is love, as crazy as that is. So the situation that I had last year, I remember I was in this state for quite a while, and my awesome husband was trying so hard to support me in this and try and help me pull out of it. And he didn't know what to do, but he would check in on me all the time. He was constantly just holding me and letting me cry, or just trying to be there for me so I didn't feel alone. But I remember one day we were talking and he broke down and told me how much he loved me. And I looked at his eyes and it was so clear to me. Like I actually felt in that moment that it wasn't him telling me he loved me, even though it was, and even though he does love me, but I felt like he was actually a vehicle or a channel. Yeah, exactly. For God.
Wow.
And that it was this moment that God used him to share his love for me through my husband. And it was such a powerful moment that is when I remember my healing beginning, because I felt that love so strongly that it gave me hope that maybe I was worth loving again. So love is this really powerful tool, and it's really devastating when we don't feel it, right? Because it's a feeling of helplessness if we don't have love in our world and in our lives. Having self-hatred is, what's the point? If we're not worth loving, what's the point, really? And this is a lie that's so devastating to so many that so many people have bought into, and it's just not true. And so when I'm in a good space, like today I'm in a good space. So today I can look at it and go, yeah, I struggle with self-hatred, but I know it's a lie. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's not true. But some days I don't necessarily feel that it's not true. And that's when I rely on other people to help lift me up out of that space and help me to see and feel love, which I think is why relationships are so vital and important in our lives.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm the one who has to pull someone up out of their self-hatred. And sometimes I need someone else to pull me out of my self-hatred.
Oh, I love that. I love all those thoughts, that experience too. Interestingly enough, I have almost like a similar moment with Isabel, my wife,
Yeah.
your daughter.
Yeah.
There was just some stuff like before we got married, and like I did something that was hurtful, and I remember feeling like, oh, like this is like, as I go to talk to her, like this is where I get punished and hated, and like this is where I get all the stuff I deserve, you know, for the terrible thing I've done or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Like it's not like she even had to like get over the hump of like anger or anything. Like she just like looked at me and was like, I love you and I forgive you. And it was that same feeling like, holy cow, someone, like, it's okay to be loved even though I'm not finished or perfect or whole yet, you know?
Yeah.
And those are really beautiful moments. That's so cool.
Yeah. They're so vital.
Wow. I was going to say too, like for those listening, maybe just take a minute and ask some questions about how do you deal with love? How do you deal with self-hatred? Is there self-hatred that you haven't looked at yet? And I would say, like, sure, there could be times when it might not be safe emotionally to like dive clear in. But if you can see the hints of self-hatred there, if you can see yourself struggling with self-love and struggling to love others, if you feel yourself maybe being a people pleaser, like looking for the clues of self-hatred, if you see them, then like get with someone who's safe that you can talk to about it, whether it's someone close to you or like a counselor, therapist.
Yeah, for sure.
Go to a coach, come hang out with me if you want. But I think
I recommend that.
oh, thank you. And I feel like it's weird how it feels so like when those thoughts come up, the thought is almost like, oh, I'm not allowed, I shouldn't feel this, so I'm going to stop feeling it.
Yeah.
But you're going to feel it forever if you keep doing that. The weird, ironic secret is you need to get those things out. You need to give a space to hear your thoughts about why you hate yourself. And what's crazy is usually, or always, at least in my experience, you find that there's something untrue. And you referenced that. There's something untrue beneath your self-hatred. I actually think it's impossible to hate yourself if you know everything about yourself.
I would agree with that.
And the same goes for everyone.
Everyone else. Yeah.
You know, you can't, I know this is like, I'm using a political example just because it's like it's poignant, but you can't hate Donald Trump if you know him all the way. Like you might not love the things he does. And I think a lot of us are in that crowd there, but but
his actions are not indicative of his worth.
Right. That's what we're talking about. And we're like, yeah, that's true. But it's hard to believe when you look at a political figure. I mean, even Hitler. Do we love Hitler?
Yeah. It brings up so many uncomfortable feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like huge discomfort.
Yeah, it does.
To acknowledge that people that we look at their actions as being so hateful and cruel. And I mean, I think that most everyone would agree that Hitler's actions were vile.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
But he's still worthy of love. And that probably brings up a lot of discomfort for a lot of people.
Yeah, even after we've said it, I'm still like,
yeah, yeah. But the problem is that if we don't believe that about Hitler, why won't we apply that? Why wouldn't I apply that to my child who makes an error or does something that, like, my kids have made some choices that were really not great, not killing, like mass killing people, but but still things that I really disagreed with, or I really struggled to watch them make mistakes and deal with those consequences. Like, it's really, really hard. And if I don't believe that I should love them through that, why would I'm not saying this very well.
That's great.
But it's the same thing, whether we're looking at Hitler or our own children or ourselves, that we have to apply the principles across the board. We can't just compartmentalize Hitler. Oh, he was different than everyone else. No, he is a human being just like everyone else. Yeah. And we have to apply those same principles of love everywhere. And it's tough.
Until we do apply it to everywhere, it secretly, I think, won't apply to us. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Like if you're trying to withhold love from one place or one person, or a certain type of person or certain actions, you'll still, my heart like actually hurts. I feel like a physical, right under my heart.
Yeah.
But you'll still be diminishing the amount of love that you actually are worth or that you could receive.
Right. Well, and I think that goes back to the fact that we have bought into the idea that love is attached to actions or achievements or behaviors or that sort of thing. And if we believe that, then we can't apply love to someone like Hitler. We can't apply it to anyone, really. We have to detach that. Otherwise, our love becomes really conditional, right?
Right.
There's no way that we can feel unconditional love if we attach that to behaviors or actions or achievements or success or whatever. There's just no way.
Yeah. I don't know if this is helpful to anyone, but I'm just noticing in myself, even after a couple of years of like heavily talking about love and trying to figure out what it is, I still feel quite a bit of fear about like, are we sure it's totally not attached to actions? You know, like, is there anything I could do to get God to love me less or to, to deserve less love? But I think a helpful like tactic, I guess, to work with your ego and your subconscious is just to say, I'm going to try, like if there's a chance this is right, I'm going to try believing it and see what it brings. So I'm going to try believing that love is, connected to the fact that we are worth so much, and it's not connected to my actions. Hopefully that makes sense. Like this idea of just trusting that maybe love really is eternal and expansive, and that God will always love me regardless of my mistakes. Man, those things feel so scary, but that's a great little tactic, is to try it, see how it feels today,
Yeah. But if it's true, wouldn't that be so amazing and beautiful?
It would,
liberating, like so empowering. If I knew, I don't think it would change my actions, really. And I think that's where the fear comes a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like I feel this fear. And in fact, as a parent, and we've talked about this before,
and I was
right?
just about to say this too.
Yeah. As a parent, I have felt this fear that if I demonstrate full unconditional love to my children, even when they're behaving inappropriately, that's going to give them permission to behave more inappropriately, because there won't be any motivation for them to work harder to earn love, right?
Yeah.
But how empowering is that, to give ourselves permission that we're loved no matter what? And honestly, I know myself well enough to know I don't think I would stop behaving with the best good. I just feel like I know myself well enough to know that I want to be a good person. I want to treat others well. I want to do my best. I want to pursue worthwhile goals and have aspirations to become better and to live better. And I don't think that would change. In fact, I think it might enlarge that possibility. If I felt love all the time, it would invigorate me. It would energize me, because I know that when I feel loved, I'm actually in a much more joyful space.
Yeah.
So my experience from last year, I'm just thinking, when I was feeling so much self-hatred, it wasn't helping me make better choices or do more good. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was spending a lot of time crying in my bed, doing nothing that was really beneficial to anyone else or myself, right?
Yeah.
But when I started feeling that love, that's when I could pick myself up and actually start doing things. So why don't we trust that?
That's a beautiful question. Yeah, because I have that exact same fear that I'll fall off the But when you really look at it, I feel that same thing. Like I can feel that I wouldn't really do less good if I didn't hold that potential punishment over my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Connected thought. I'm just thinking about this word unconditional. So I think you're right that God's love is eternally like exuding from it. I don't know. Like there's an eternal flow of love that's unending.
Yeah.
Flow of love from God to me. And I don't think there are conditions on that love coming to me, right? There's nothing I could do to stop it or to slow it.
Right.
The conditional side maybe comes to my decision to like align with that love or resonate with it or live a life that allows for it to flow. Is that correct thinking that like, because I mean, if I'm living a life of like, of hatred and like, fear and trying to hurt people, I'm not going to feel the love that's being sent to me. So in that sense, it's conditional in that sense, but it's not supposed to be conditional in the sense that like God's love isn't changing for me. Right. Is that right?
I think that feels true to me.
Would you say that differently? I feel like there's still a piece of fear in me that wants to clarify that. And that's why I'm like, we got to make sure, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, I feel like, and I don't know if this is where you were going, but I feel like for me, I block love all the time. And it doesn't mean that it's not there. So I keep going back to this experience with my husband, right? The day that the healing began, where he expressed his love, that wasn't the first time he told me he loved me or he cared about me, but that was the first time I heard it. And I don't know what shifted within myself where I was actually finally able to open myself up to feel that and experience it. But leading up to that, he had told me he loved me, I don't even know how many times, but I wasn't ready or willing to hear that. And I feel like maybe that's a belief system within myself that I didn't feel worthy, and I just needed to hear that over and over and over and over and over again until I finally went, oh, maybe this is true. And I opened myself up just enough that then it came pouring in. And I think that's maybe what we experience with God, that a lot of times we just block that. We block it with other people too. And then if we open it up, just the possibility, I like how you said, can we consider that maybe this is true, even though it feels scary to us, right? When we take a step back to just consider something, we open ourselves up just enough that we can possibly feel that. And if it's true, it will come pouring into us, as evidence will just come pouring into our lives that helps us to know the truth behind what we're seeking. And I felt that's what happened with my husband that day, right? I just a tiny bit, and suddenly I knew, oh, wow, God really loves me, and my husband really, really loves me. I had no idea how much they loved me.
Wow.
So I don't know. I love the word consider. Just take a second. Maybe this is true. So maybe I'll just open myself up to that possibility for a second and see what happens.
Yeah. And it's not just like okay to do that. I think that's such a big, even though it's scary, I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Opening to the possibility. I'm just noticing in myself, I love the way that you're speaking like so confidently about like there is this enormous flow of love that if I open to it, I can have it. I feel it's like I'm noticing my body language right now. I've got my arms crossed across my chest. There's like a piece of me that wants to rejoice in the fact that there's so much love from God, even to the point that like God is love, that's like one of the ways he refers to himself, that he is love. And I can tell that there's a piece of me, and I'll need to do some work on this, like a piece of my child self or a piece of my spirit that's saying like, I am afraid to have that full amount of love and that rejoicing that would come with it. I'm trying to get like a because.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, can you pinpoint where that comes from? Or is that something you're still trying to figure out?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. One of my favorite tools is just to slap the word because on it. So like I'm afraid to fully embrace God's love or fully receive his love because, and then you just kind of let your subconscious spit out all the fearful answers. The one that came up first is because it will break me. So I don't know what that means. Like maybe there's so much love. Man, I'll have to spend some more time on that, but there's definitely a piece that's like, I can't receive it yet. And it's not just like, I think there's a piece of truth in there that like, as we progress, we'll receive more love. As you align with God, you can receive more of his love until you receive it all.
Right.
And along with it, you'll receive like everything he has. But I feel like maybe that's a cool question. Is God putting the cap on how much love I can receive right now? Like, am I using his cap as a reference, or have I put my own cap that's like, 50% of what he says I could receive? I've put this cap saying I can't receive more than this until I'm better.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a piece of it has to do with that motivation. Like, am I gonna, do terrible things if I don't have this potential fear or punishment. But yeah, there's something else. I'll keep chewing on it.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I have this visual coming into my mind of, I'm not going to be able to articulate this right because I don't necessarily know the words for this.
Okay, cool.
But like, maybe we're living with a capacity of like a AAA battery, and we need to upgrade to a larger capacity, and we've just decided not to buy the new battery and put it in, even though there's space for it. We just don't. So we need to, I don't know, enlarge our bandwidth or some sort of an upgrade of what we can accept. I think about this all the time with what I'm able to accomplish. Like, really, what is my limit? Because I don't think I know my limit yet. I don't think I've reached my limit or my potential, but I haven't upgraded myself to believe yet in that. In fact, I was talking to Isabel, your wife, just a little bit ago. We were talking about finances, a totally different subject, but that idea of, I was telling her that James and I have been, my husband and I have been looking at houses in a certain area near our home that are really, really pricey. And we actually drove up to a home a few weeks ago to go into an open house, and we sat in the driveway for a few minutes. And I looked at him and said, I can't even pretend like we can afford this house right now. And we backed out of the driveway and drove away because we weren't ready yet to even pretend. We were trying to get ourselves in a space where we can envision ourselves being capable of affording something different or a future that might look a little different. And we weren't, I mean, at least we got to the open house, right? That's a step in the right direction. But we just, one step at a time. But until we can actually envision ourselves being able to afford that house or something similar, we wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that's the same way with love. Until we can envision ourselves being able to embrace and accept that love, we have to do something to open ourselves up to that. And it's understanding that capacity is greater than what we thought it was. So for us in this example with the house, I'm like, okay, maybe we need to start with something a little smaller. Like, I can envision buying a new car, but I can't envision buying a $2 million home or whatever ridiculous number you want to slap on a home, right? Yeah. And so maybe it's just going in those little steps that we can actually envision and embrace, and then just continuing to build upon that, because I think the reservoir is endless, but we may not have the right tools there to accept that without drowning. Yeah.
Oh, man, these are beautiful, scary thoughts. The ones that make you, dig deep into the heart. So this idea that, I love the way you said, like, can I even pretend that I could accept this house or accept this love? The question is, can you imagine a child? Does a 2-year-old or 3-year-old child, let's say they've had like a really loving, like no blocks to love, are they able to fully receive the love of God that's available to them? Or do they still need to practice? You know what I mean? Like, in theory, do they need to practice opening more?
Are you asking if our blocking love is a learned thing?
Yeah, I'm terrified of the question. But yes, that is what I'm asking.
Maybe.
I don't know if you feel that. Like, for real, the phrases in my mind are like angry thoughts, just like, this sucks. Everything sucks. Just like anger about myself having blocked love. That is kind of the feeling I get, that maybe I learned how to block it. And
that it didn't feel safe to open yourself up to love, because love can hurt sometimes, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. And then let's question it this way too. I personally believe in a life before this, like a premortal experience. And I kind of wonder if we could have blocks to love back then too. We'd have to. Well,
we'd have to. Could we?
I mean, if we've always had agency, I believe that as well. That we've always been able to choose.
Yeah.
So it's possible that we could have chosen to receive less love. Maybe it was easier to receive at that point or something. But like, I guess that's the question in my soul right now. Is like, where the heck did we start blocking love?
Yeah.
And it's weird that I think a few years ago in my mind, I would have almost said to that, like, at some future point, I will be worthy of the love because I'll be doing all the right things and I'll stop doing the bad things I'm doing.
Yes, I relate to that so much.
And now I'm like, that feels so sick.
Yeah.
Does God love me as a 15-year-old who's making a ton of mistakes less? Does he love me less than he did when I was 2 and I was still pure, doing air quotes, you're like still clean and pure. There's also a difference between being pure and being finished. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it's not like a child has accomplished all the eternal things they would need to earn that conditional love that we're afraid exists. Man,
but
I don't
what's
know.
Finished? Like really projecting out of I'll be worthy of love when I'm finished.
Yeah.
When is that?
Oh, that's crazy.
That's helpless feeling. Like never.
It's literally my cousin Preston Pugmire. He runs a podcast. It's amazing. Next Level Life is what it's called if you need it. But one of the things he says, basically, that attitude is committing to never feel love until you're done.
Yeah.
Or saying that like happiness will come after I get my money in order and I get my house, or after I am married or whatever. Like you're literally saying, I commit to not feel happiness until that point.
Yeah.
But he recommends doing the opposite, actually bringing the potential future into the present and saying, I'm going to choose to feel that now. And then step forward so that when I arrive there, I can say I've already been here.
I love that idea.
Yeah, so it's so cool. I want to do that with love so much.
Well, and I was just thinking too that idea, your question about when did we start blocking ourselves from love? I don't think it's bad to ask that, but I think it's more empowering to say, I have blocked myself from love. How can I move forward past that block?
Oh yeah, it's not as angry.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't keep us stuck. I feel like if I focus too much on why did I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? Why am I this way? What happened in my past? Then I get stuck in my past.
Yeah.
But if I just acknowledge, oh, the past happened. This is the reality. Now that's the truth, right? Because there are all sorts of messages that can be attached to that aren't true. But if I just focus on, oh, the truth is, I feel this way. I've embraced this truth in my past, or embraced this as truth in my past.
Yeah.
How do I move forward to actually find real truth? And this is actually one of the things I love about conversations with you, Kyson, is that you are constantly asking yourself, is that true? Like one of my favorite things, and the first time you ever did this to me, I was like, oh, that feels uncomfortable to me, because I shared something that I felt to be true, and you said, I don't know if that feels true to me. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more. I think you say, I'm going to have to chew on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
And is that really true? And I remember thinking, oh, if Kyson doesn't think it's true, then maybe it's not true. And it caused me to reflect more on it. But I've learned to really value and appreciate that you don't accept something immediately. You really do take a moment to reflect, does this feel true to me? Instead of just accepting something at face value. And I think that's what we should be doing with all of our responses and reactions to love, so that we can then move forward and become unblocked.
Wow, thank you. Gosh, I love that. It's definitely something I'm practicing. And I think that's a really cool way to look at like coaching or self-discovery or energy work, is where I love the way you said that. Like maybe the approach is, let's learn truth today. And then when a truth, questioning, is this true or not? When something comes up and it brings up like tension inside, or there's this dissonance, then we approach it that way. Like, oh, there's a piece of me that's struggling with this truth. Like most of me has accepted that God's love is like for me and that it flows like a river or like the ocean. And then there's a piece of me that's afraid. And then we go sort of in a rescue mode or healing mode with that piece. Yeah. Let's go to my 5-year-old self. What's he afraid about with this love? And see if we can help find the untruth that's been accepted. But with not just to be like, oh crap, I have this untruth, or, look what I did to myself, but to like release it and to accept the more truth, more true thing. Yeah. And I think that's what's meant. I love the phrase, like, your faith has made you whole. That kind of comes from the scriptures, right? Yeah. So instead of being in pieces that believe, pieces that have different fears, we're coming together and becoming whole into like one self.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if we go into our past at all, so you brought up your 5-year-old self. Let's say that we do recognize, oh, this is bringing up something from when I was 5 or when I was 2 or when I was 8 or, whatever it is. And there's an actual experience. When I'm in my best places, what I like to do is go into my meditative state, envision that child and envision myself with more truth going and being with that child and helping to teach that child truth so that they can move past the lies that they were taught at that moment and feel safe and feel loved and feel worthy and feel like everything's going to be okay. Because if nobody is taking care of my 5-year-old back when I was 5, I now, as a 49-year-old, can go back to that 5-year-old and say, I'm here for you. Yeah. I'm looking out for myself. And if nobody else was, I have children who were adopted who lived in really hard life situations, right? They lived in orphanages, they were neglected and abandoned, abused, and all sorts of things. How do they get past that idea that they're loved and they're worthy and they're safe when every message around them was different? They have to learn how to be their own advocate. And that's hard to do. But I'm learning that I have a support system of people around me that love me, but they're not 100% in a good place. Like, right. My husband, as amazing as he is not always my safest person. Like, there are times that he's struggling himself and he doesn't have anything to give me, but I can be my own advocate. And God can be my advocate, I believe.
Yeah. What better way to advocate for yourself than to go like, oh, what do I really need? Okay, I need truth. I need the source. I need love. But yeah, that's what you're saying, is that you're advocating for seeking for truth instead of like, oh, I'm just worthless and I need to hate myself and I have no purpose. Advocating for the idea that you might, to say like bringing this peace to a truer space, bringing it to God or bringing God with you to that peace.
Right. Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. I think a great word to apply here as well is just practice, that we don't have to have love figured out today. Or like if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh crap, I'm struggling, or you find yourself struggling next week. I love the principle of just practicing, latch onto a few principles that really help you feel more open and clear instead of like dark and pushed down, something that helps you expand and rise. Yeah. Take those principles and then just like plan on practicing today, reevaluate tonight, Yeah. One of the things I'm practicing, and a really awesome scripture that comes to mind, it talks about coming to receive, like from God. He doesn't tell anyone to go away from him. He says unto all, come to him and to receive milk and honey without money and without price. Yep. And whether you're, religious or Christian or not, I think this principle applies. Like when you go to the like, I don't know, the table of like, here, I'm here to buy milk and honey, figuratively. I'm here to receive love and blessings and abundance. When you're in that space, I wonder if sometimes, I catch myself sometimes trying to pay for it. I'm whipping out my wallet and like, can I please pay for it? And he's like, well, you can come receive it, but without money. And I'm like, oh, well, can I work for it? Or can I like, is there some price, but it's without money, without price. God is there to give us, like once we come to him, he's there to give us what we need. And I think the real thing that we're trying to do is to leave behind those false beliefs that we have to pay for it with our money and with our price. But in reality, it's already been paid for.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that perspective. That's so cool. Yeah. I love thinking about that because I do the same thing.
Can I please pay for your love? Even with people, not just
because I don't want to owe anyone. I do that with all my relationships.
Yeah, and it's
all
exhausting.
The time. Oh, it's so exhausting.
It's
because you can never pay enough, right? It's never enough. Well, and I notice people doing it with me too. I'm like, no, really, it's okay. I just want to help, or I just want to do this, or I just want to be there for you.
It's back to that game, right? Of the negative self, trying to make a game. Because it's like you're telling yourself all these different lies as you go, like, okay, I need to pay for this love, or I need to make sure we're even. But then as soon as you go above it, you're like, well, then they need to pay for it and get even. And then obviously when you're in your good space, that all kind of falls away and disappears.
Yeah.
But I think back to that idea, like if you're tapped into your true self, your true identity, your true, divinity and connection to God, love will flow just naturally. I don't even know, I feel like there's a better word for that, but love will flow abundantly.
Yeah.
Money will flow abundantly. Joy will flow abundantly. All the things that I don't know. I notice myself saying, just like the thoughts that pop up in my head is like, oh, I'm working today so I can be more financially stable, so I can be happier and at peace. Or, I'm doing this service so I can have more love, and God will give me more blessings, and then I'll be at peace. But I don't know. I think it's a sneaky lie to wait for that future, or to pretend that I'm going to pay for it, when maybe we just need to get connected with our higher power and say, what's available to me today? And if you might find that it's right where you're at, like he's like, yep, you're getting all that you deserve. But I'm pretty sure like all the time it's going to be like, oh, I actually have a huge, I've got a truckload of blessings here. I was just waiting for you to ask and to stop blocking me, I'm ready to give you the next step. And so maybe that's the thing that that I need to practice, is like, I'm going to say what's available to me today. And I'm going to trust that when God says, I want to give you this, I'm going to trust that he knows how to give that gift at the right time.
Yeah. I need to practice that too. There's always room for practice, right?
Yeah, so much.
Dang.
I wanted to here's some sweet quotes to
Yes, I want to hear them. Get
some cool, I don't know, to wrap these thoughts in some beautiful words. Go figure, it's C.S. Lewis quotes. So he says, love, this is, I think, from his book, The Four Loves. Good luck finding it. You can always Google his quotes. Love is not affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good as far as it can be obtained. So it's kind of that eternal love idea.
Yeah.
For their ultimate good, that's a great way to say it, as far as it can be obtained.
So I love that, because that's so close to what you learned about love on your own, which to me says that it's aligned with truth. Because now we've seen multiple people who have gotten that same inspiration. And I feel like when we tap into truth or the universe or our higher power, we start seeing a lot of other people having the same, similar beliefs.
Yeah.
I've had some inspiration the last few years, and I'm like, this is so cool. I've come up with these ideas all on my own. And now suddenly I'm noticing there are so many people who have these same thoughts and beliefs and inspirations. And I'm like, dang, I'm not the only one. That stinks. I thought I was so unique and awesome. But it's also really cool because it just helps me to recognize that I am aligned with truth, because lots of good people are aligned with that same truth. So there must be something to it. So I love that mimicked what.
No, that's so cool, because I've forgotten most of my a lot of the pieces of my experience of searching for love. But actually finding this quote was one of the climax moments, because I was like, I think it's this. I'm going to hope that it's this and pretend that this is what love is. And then I started reading around and found that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think that is, at least that's a great stepping stone towards figuring out what it is.
Yeah, if you came up with a similar belief to C.S. Lewis, that's a really good.
I mean, I'm not going to claim that I made that up, but I definitely feel like God was good to me. And helped me figure out at least some pieces of it.
Yeah. Gave you some truth to chew on.
Yeah,
right?
so fun. There's this other piece of a quote. Oh my goodness. If you want to make sure of keeping... Okay. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. That one's intense.
Yeah, it is.
I don't even know what to say about that one, honestly. I just want it to be out there for thoughts.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about, because in my mind, as you were reading that, I expected it to say that that love, if you lock it up like that it will actually shrivel up and die.
Mm-hmm.
What are you left with? If you don't, it's like a plant, right?
Yeah.
If you don't water and nourish a plant, and you keep it confined, that doesn't keep it safe. It just kills it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a very good analogy,
Totally.
but that was just what I expected it to go to.
Yeah. Well, that brings up an idea I've been chewing on. So if God is love, like his divinity, God is love, or he resonates so much with love that he can say, I am love. If I am also divine, like God has given me, within me are the seeds of divinity, however we like to say that.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I am also love? Does it mean that I will become, like in my true state, I am also love? I know I feel some fears about saying that, but like, is it more true to say I'm also love in progress? Or is it, sometimes we are so afraid of that we embrace the opposite, like, oh, I am terrible and bad and weak. That's who I am. But why not define ourselves by the divinity that is in us? Is that okay to do? Or is that?
I think it's more than okay to do.
I think that's one of those that I might just I'll pretend that that's what I believe and see how, it's scary.
Yeah.
But I think that's the truth.
Yeah.
Or it's more true than the opposite, that I am worth nothing.
I hope it's more true. I like to latch on to ideas, even if I can't fully embrace them yet, because I haven't changed my capacity to accept. Mm-hmm. I like to latch on to ideas that continue to give hope for something better. And I think that idea gives hope for something better, and the opposing thought feels
destruction, or disappearing into nothing.
Yeah. That doesn't feel hopeful to me. And I feel like God would any higher power, the universe, it's all about growth. It's all about progression, right? The earth is, even if you just look at the earth in and of itself, it is always creating and growing and like just on its own. Mm-hmm. So why would we accept truth as being the opposite of that?
Oh, totally. Well, that brings up kind of a final point I want to make, is that love and truth are always connected. If you've seen any of my videos, like on my website, I have a blog about this. But I think you literally cannot receive more love unless you receive more truth. Yeah. And maybe a good way to say that too is that if you have untruth or like untrue beliefs about love, it will diminish your love. I think if you have untrue beliefs about anything, it will actually diminish your ability to love. And I would say, as like a guiding principle through your personal journey, for anyone listening and for myself, a guiding principle for discovering love is that truth and love always connected, and then the opposite, untruth and fear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you feel fear, I think it cannot be connected to truth. And there's this weird thing, like I hear these phrases in my mind, like, oh, well, you hear like parents, or you hear people saying like, oh, I love my kids, I just worry about them so much. Is that love? If it has fear behind it, I'm wondering if that's not necessarily, it's not the truest form of love, and it's connected to untruth. So that would be just my invitation on your journey. I don't know, any final thoughts on like, any final good lucks? I know we haven't it's not like we figured out what love is all the way, but we're finding it.
Well, it's going to be a lifelong journey, right? And maybe even beyond that, if we believe in a life hereafter, right? I mean, it's, as you said earlier, love is eternal. So if that's the case, then it's an eternal quest for understanding of truth and more knowledge, and opening ourselves up more to that. And there are a lot of scary things that we have to overcome. But I think that's where the fear comes in, that we recognize, that is not, I agree with you that you cannot have fear and love in the same space. Yeah. It just can't be. I know when I feel fearful, I don't feel like I love. I just don't. Even if there is still love associated with my being, it's not focused on whatever I'm fearful about. Yeah. And when I step back and look at truth, then love can make its way back in. And I really do love that idea. It's just a matter of practicing and continuing to stay in that space more and more often, rather than giving into, for me, the habit of latching on to fear. That's become a habit in my life, and I need to just keep practicing.
Yeah.
And it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and I think as you move forward, I think a really great principle is to trust that it's okay to, like, whatever you feel about love right now, or whatever your struggles are, it's okay to have those and to discuss them with people that are safe. You'll probably find that God will teach you together as you start to discuss with people around you what you're feeling about love. Journal and, talk to yourself about what you feel about love, and then talk to people that are safe. And I think that can be a huge part of the journey. Yeah.
One final thought. Going back to this experience with my husband, right? When I was in that bad space, I remember that one of the greatest lessons that I learned during that time was, as yucky as I felt, as low as I felt, as horrible as I felt, and I had a lot of hatred towards myself, and consequently a lot of hatred towards God at the time. But I remember coming out of that, and even in the process of feeling, the one thing that I felt was that even as yucky as that moment was, that God honored my journey, even in a yucky place. And I think, as you're saying that, what I'm hearing is, if you're struggling with learning and growing and developing, and you're recognizing that you have fears, and you're recognizing that you're not where you want to be eventually, that's not a bad thing. God honors that. I honor that in other people, in their journeys. I think that you're the kind of person, Kyson, that honors other people's journeys. And whatever that looks like, it's okay. We are where we are emotionally and mentally and spiritually and physically for a purpose. And it's to learn and to gain new ideas and knowledge. And as we honor that journey and just look at it and recognize that, I'm here to learn from this, then it can become a beautiful experience, instead of us just living in this place of, I'm never enough. This is so stupid that I'm still stuck here and I'm still dealing with this, or I'm back here again. I thought I'd overcome this, and now I'm stuck here again, which happens to me all the time. But instead, to just honor our journey and have some compassion for ourselves and what we're experiencing and the process that we're going through to learn and grow and develop and gain greater understanding and truth. And I think for me, that's a really important principle to remember.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so, so beautiful. Hopefully this conversation has brought up good questions for people, good thoughts. I would just invite you to take that leap of faith and look at your stuff, I love the way you said that God's trying to teach you. Sometimes we think, I'm supposed to be up here and then I deserve love. So I'm going to pretend like I'm up there, instead of saying, let me be honest with where I'm at now, and then let God pull me to the place where I can receive his love.
For sure. I love that.
So so interesting. That's the show. Hopefully
we did it.
Your life is extremely changed. And when I say your life, I mean all of our lives.
No, you just mean mine.
Cool. You guys are welcome to, follow your hearts on this, give a little rating to the podcast, tell us what you liked and what you didn't like, if there's something you didn't like. Most importantly, tell us the questions that are in your hearts, and we'll make podcasts about them in the future. I'll find people that want to talk about it, and we'll do some discovery that way. So, peace.